Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Richard Grannon and Friends. I'm joined here today by Jenn Nesbit, friend of mine and personal trainer from Empowered Gym. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can I have a little bit of a conversation with you about what you do, what you've been up to, where you're from? Why don't we start with where you're from? Where are you from originally?
Originally from around here.
From around here? From Liverpool?
Not on this side. I grew up in Neston.
In Neston. So you're a Wool, not a Scouser?
Yes.
That's okay. That's okay on my podcast. So you're from Neston. And did you grow up in Neston?
Yeah, I've grown up. I've literally lived there my whole life, more or less. I only left when I went to uni for about 4 or 5 years and then came back mainly due to the pandemic.
Where did you go to university?
Nottingham.
Nottingham. He's from Nottingham.
Nice.
Grottingham. It's a lovely city. No, there are nice parts of Nottingham, aren't there? Is there not a nice part?
Some. There are some.
Historical bits?
Yeah.
Where you're not being stabbed. So you went to Nottingham. What did you study at Nottingham?
I did nutrition and food science there. So that's where I did my bachelor's degree.
Okay. What age were you when you started your degree there?
21.
Okay.
So I went to uni late.
And what was your motivation for studying, what did you say, nutrition and?
Food science.
Nutrition and food science. What was the motivation for doing that?
I guess my own sort of personal journey really with struggling with my own eating. So I kind of developed an eating disorder from quite a young age.
How old were you when you developed that?
About 10 years old.
At 10? Was that at the anorexia or the bulimia side of the spectrum?
At that age, it was more, I guess, just starting to slowly cut things out.
Okay.
I didn't really have a specific motivation or anything like that. It was more like other things were kind of happening in my life, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one thing that I could influence. So I just gradually started to cut a few things out, change a few things. And then eventually I went more into full-blown anorexia.
And what do you think motivated you as 10's very young, as a 10-year-old to start cutting food out? Was it a rebellion? Were you in protest?
I guess I didn't really feel like I fitted in with a lot of things. Okay. So I was bullied quite a lot as a child. And I didn't really feel accepted by like friends and things. So I guess that was the one thing that I had that no one else could sort of take away from me. Was
that at home or outside the home you experienced bullying?
Mainly school friends.
Mainly school friends. And things at home, how were they?
Things at home were relatively good. I mean, I didn't, there's not been any drastic kind of upset or anything like that at the home. My mum isn't necessarily the best emotionally available person, okay. Which has kind of caused a lot of conflict more as I developed anorexia fully because she didn't know how to communicate with me. But growing up wise, I don't necessarily remember anything bad happening or anything.
Did your parents support you when you were being bullied? Did they offer you any advice? Or?
I don't think they really knew because I was a very private person. I never really used to speak about anything. And I guess I kind of had this narrative in my family as being like the sensible one and the quiet one. So I didn't really say anything.
So people told you that you was the sensible one and the quiet one?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have brothers and sisters?
No.
So in your family unit with your mum and your dad, you were seen as sensible and quiet. That's interesting. This isn't a therapy session.
Nope.
But you've got me in therapy mode now. It's an interesting identity to impose on a child who's 10. Who do you think was pushing that identity onto you? Was it more your mum or your dad?
I think probably both, because I don't know, I was kind of, the emphasis was a lot on like grades and, being good at school and things like that. And I think in my cousins and things like that, I was, I guess, more the one that was academic focused, whereas some of the others were very outspoken, quite loud, orientated. And that was, I guess, where everyone used to say, oh, Jenn's the bright one, or Jenn's the quiet one who just kind of gets on with things.
So when you were at school, was that what caused the resentment that inspired the bullying? Was that you were doing really well academically?
Probably. And I guess like I was more of a pushover type thing. I didn't really stand up for myself in any kind of essence. So if someone said, jump, like I would say how high type thing, I didn't really have a backbone to sort of stand up for what was right, what was wrong. I just kind of, whatever they wanted was what I did.
And you didn't see anything in your parents that was a good model for standing up for yourself? Like, is your mum a pushover? Is your dad a pushover?
I'd say my mum's definitely a pushover. My dad can be quite stern when he wants to be. But he very much bottles it up to himself. So I think potentially those sorts of two dynamics of always bottling things up and not really talking about things as a family kind of then made me not really feel able to talk about things.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's no model for saying, hey, this sucks.
Yeah.
No, because we do what our parents do. We don't do what they say. So if they're not doing something, we really don't know how to do it either. So then when you're at school, you're in this situation where you're trapped into the role of being good and studious and quiet and not complaining. And people are bullying you and you have no means for standing up for yourself. So that must have been, do you remember what you were feeling at age 10?
I guess I just didn't really feel like I had a way out of things, and I didn't really know how to express what I was feeling. So I think if people started to worry about things in other ways, then I would be seen, I guess, for what was going on.
Sure. So you think maybe you hadn't rationalized it quite like that as a 10-year-old, but you were kind of doing something that maybe people would see that there was a problem.
Yeah.
And then you would get some of the help and the attention that you would naturally be craving as a 10-year-old. So what food did you cut out?
I started to stop eating lunches, cut out sort of crisps and biscuits, things like that. I would eat at home because obviously then that doesn't flag up anything's wrong. But yeah, I would just not eat my lunches and stuff, or I would eat, kind of more salady kind of based stuff or whatever. But I guess it just it was one of those things that gradually got worse, and I gradually started to cut, actual proper food groups out in terms of cutting out crisps and chocolate kind of foods, carbs, fats, sugars.
What age did you get to? Do you think you were when you started cutting out carbs?
Probably when I started high school. So I would have been 12.
So at 12, you knew your macronutrients.
I obviously didn't call them macronutrients back then, but I guess you always saw things on TV around sort of I guess carbs are bad or whatever, or things. And so I think it was just one of those things that I'd identified that, actually a lot of people kind of start to reduce those things. So if I can sort of take them out, then that will help me to kind of lose more. Yeah.
And when you say more, you're saying more because between the ages of 10 and 12, you'd already lost some weight.
Yeah.
And did your parents notice that?
They did notice, yeah. My nan noticed more first because I was in a family kind of family friend's wedding, and we'd showed the pictures to my nan when we got back from Cyprus and things, and she recognised that there was something different in me because she could tell in my eyes were very dark in comparison to how they normally are. So yeah, she noticed first, and then I did lose a little bit more, but then people started to recognise things, and they'd started to threaten me with, not being able to go out. And
which people?
My mum and dad, my tutor at school at the time, and then someone who I knew from when I was in childminders as well. And they sort of said, like, if you don't start eating, then we're going to take things away from you. You won't be able to go out at lunch, et cetera, et cetera.
What's childminders?
It's kind of like a nanny, basically.
Oh.
After you.
Oh, I thought there was a group called Childminders.
Oh, no.
Oh, you had
Yeah.
a child. Okay.
Yeah.
You had a childminder. Okay. For some reason, I imagine like a mindfulness and meditation group for children.
Oh.
That makes no sense.
Maybe not back in the day. Maybe now.
I should drink the rest of this coffee, I think. Yeah, that makes way more sense than like children sitting around doing Zen. So when you had a childminder, your childminder would say to you, you have to eat or else.
Yeah.
And your mum would say, you have to eat or there'll be a punishment. A sanction will be placed against you. Was there any other support offered at all? Or?
Not at that time, no. It was more of a case of I need to make them just stop worrying about me. So then I started eating, but then obviously I didn't solve the issue of everything else that was going on at the time. So it's kind of like we're just going to spiral back down into...
So you started eating again and then stopped again?
Yeah.
And this is around age 14 now?
Yeah.
What happened next?
So I guess one of the pivotal moments that kind of made me go quite south, if you like, was...
South in terms of weight?
Yes. Yeah.
That's an interesting way of saying it. Well, I have gone south.
I've gone south, yeah. I was seeing a guy at the time, and him and my best friend at the time kind of came up with this idea that they would pretend that they liked each other and were going to go out together to see how much I cared about him. Like, this was kind of a bit of a joke, but it was all done via like MSN and things like that. So it was very difficult.
MSN? You're not old enough for MSN.
I'm older than you think.
Oh, do you really? Oh, okay. I think MSN's ancient history. So this is you're 14 years old. You're going out with a guy who's for some foreign people who watch me, when I say girl, they get upset because if you translate it to their language, if I say, I was dating a girl, they literally think of a girl. Or if you say I was dating a guy, you mean a 15-year-old, right?
Yeah.
You don't mean like a 35-year-old guy.
No. Yeah.
People literally, I think it's regional or maybe it's English people. Like we say girl, guy, and it doesn't mean anything. But when people have learned English as a second language,
they'll got a different context.
They'll hear that and they'll be like, she was dating a man. I can't believe it. And I'm like, in the comments, I'm like, no, it's just a colloquialism. So you're all young, you're all very young. And your friend and your boyfriend, decide to test what your reaction would be if they got together.
Yeah.
What was your reaction?
Well, because I obviously pushover kind of person, so I just said, okay. And then I left the conversation, went for a run. And in the process of being for a run and getting back from the run, it then turned out that was a joke. And then she was against me for thinking that I would do something like that. He was against me for thinking that I would do something like that. Her boyfriend then kind of came at me and sort of just like, why would you think that? And then in the whole process of 24 hours, all of my friends had literally just abandoned me. And I was like literally on my own, even though it was something that was done to me rather
Contrived,
than...
yeah. You know what scapegoating is?
Yes.
Where people just choose to dump all their sins. It was a literal thing. It was done in ancient Jewish communities. People put their sins onto a goat, you know that, and they kill the goat. We have a nice painting in Port Sunlight. I don't know who made it actually. Could you look that up, Jacob? Scapegoat, Port Sunlight. We have like a really beautiful original in the Lady Lever Art Gallery. Okay. I keep meaning to do a video about it. Like I should go and ask their permission and shoot there. So, yes.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who. Can you see who did that? I think was that say William Holman Hunt. Yeah, we have this locally. We have this in Port Sunlight for people who are watching at home. So you were scapegoated whilst these kids are sort of, I guess, testing their ability to have an effect in the world or whatever it is that I used to work with teenagers for 5 years, thoroughly evil fucking creatures. I enjoyed it thoroughly because I'm an evil person, but they are an absolute fucking nightmare. And this was done meaninglessly. They probably didn't. There probably wasn't any real significant malice behind it. They're doing it because they can, kind of a thing, just to see what happens if they do it. What was the effect on you?
I guess I just completely lost trust in everyone. And like I felt completely abandoned by just, that people would think that I would do those types of things.
What was it that you had done, allegedly?
Nothing. Well, I hadn't done anything. That's the thing. But then it was me apologizing for something that was
done to
me. And then that kind of made me question everyone's intentions. And I guess sort of like never want to feel that way again.
Do you still struggle sometimes now to know what the fuck is going on socially?
Over the last couple of years, I've got a lot better. Before the pandemic and during the pandemic, not so much. But I think a lot has happened personally wise, and I've done a lot of healing process over the last couple of years, shall we say, that's actually allowed me to change quite a lot of things that I internalized for many years.
That's good. So back to when you were 15, you went through this very traumatic experience when you're very young and your brain's still developing and it's still in a heightened state of neuroplasticity. What happened then?
That's when I just started to stop eating again. And then I was going running and just, I guess started a path of self-destruction.
Okay. Running, not eating. A slow suicide or just a protest?
I think it was kind of a slow way of like self-suicide because I just didn't know where I belonged, and I didn't feel like I was worthy of anything because I was always the one, like you said, that had everything dumped on them, or was just an accessory to friendships rather than being someone that actually people told things to or anything like that. So I think I just then became even more of a private person.
What effect do you think that had on you becoming more and more private?
It probably just made things worse because I just wouldn't tell anyone anything. I just bottled a lot of emotions up because I just thought, well, no one wants to hear about it anyway.
Okay.
So what's the point in kind of sharing it?
Interesting. I know about scapegoating and this kind of thing because I went through the same thing when I was a teenager. I ended up developing a philosophy around it that, yes, essentially people are trash, but that, some are okay some of the time. If you sift through the trash, you can find a few people. So what was the... I probably shouldn't say this kind of things publicly. People are trash. I'm Richard Grannon. Enjoy my courses. Scum, just scum. Dreadful, evil creatures. So that now you're 15, 16, you're completely isolated. You're on this sort of passive suicidal ideation. You're not actively looking at razor blades and ropes to hang yourself with, but you're sort of erasing yourself from reality.
Yeah.
From the simulation through running and not eating food. What happened? Nothing good, I imagine.
No, nothing good happened, no. I just slowly started to obviously lose weight. And at the time I did dabble a little bit with being sick as well. So I was then in the doctors quite a lot with like low potassium, and in and out of our park and things.
How long were you making yourself sick for? Like, do you know if it was a couple of years or?
At the time, it was probably only the year because I started to do that, but then that was a little bit too obvious, I guess, because I was going in and out of Arrow Park for potassium drips and things. So I was just like, well, we can't do that because
people will know.
People will know.
When you were making yourself sick, sorry to linger on this, do you know how many, like on a weekly schedule, would you do it every day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You said, oh, yeah, enthusiastically. Multiple times a day?
Sometimes. But
certainly 7 days a week?
Yeah.
And now that you understand more about physiology and so on, you know, well, obviously, there's all kinds of effects that can have on the body, isn't there?
Yes, yeah.
Have you experienced any long-term effects from that?
I have experienced, some long-term effects. I mean, only recently I've been back to hospitals and doctors, just because I've been having a lot of like digestive issues and like pain in sort of like stomach and pancreas sort of area. And, I had lots of tests done. They did try and put it on sort of like, it's all in your mind type thing, because that's easier to kind of say.
But they couldn't see that you were also underweight. Did nobody sort of figure out that you were making yourself sick?
At the time? No, not really, no.
Well done, NHS.
Yeah, I'm very secretive.
You can be as secretive as you like, but if there's a 15-year-old girl who needs potassium drips, who's very underweight, like if a doctor said to you, do you exercise? Would you say, yes, I run every day?
I wouldn't say I run every day. I would just say, yes.
And if they said to you, do you eat properly? What would you say?
Yes.
But then if they took your height and put you on a scale, they would see, right?
Not necessarily. It's very easy to trick the doctors. If you're that way inclined and you don't want anyone to know. So I mean, when you've got an eating disorder, that's the only thing that matters. So it's sort of like you're going to protect that and not make people aware of it for as long as possible, because that is your best friend, if you like, and you don't want to let go of your best friend.
The eating disorder is your best friend?
Yeah.
There will be some activist group out there somewhere that this video will get to. It shouldn't be that hard to train doctors like GPs to see like the risk for anorexia, bulimia, eating disorders in teenage girls, which is, you will know the statistics probably better than me, but it's absolutely skyrocketing at the moment.
Yeah.
With the advent of social media. They probably need some training, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot better, but I still think there is a lot of things that need to happen. And I guess sort of like you said, more training and more awareness as well in like general GPs to know what to look for and to not sort of like turn people away. I would have thought
teenage girl clearly underweight on a potassium drip should be an indicator.
Yeah.
I mean, they are fucking doctors, for Christ's sake. That's I would be cross if that's a very English expression, isn't it? I would be terribly cross if a GP didn't pick that up. I mean, that's and obviously you're not going to say, like a teenage girl with an eating disorder isn't going to go, I've got an eating disorder.
No.
They're going to hide it. That's part of the disorder. Okay, so you were making yourself sick for a year and then you stopped because it kept taking you to hospital.
Yeah.
What did your mother and father say to you?
Well, ironically, they didn't really know that I had an eating disorder. I mean, I suppose myself, I didn't have the terminology back then to sort of say that I had an eating disorder. I just sort of saw it as like, I'm just not eating as much as normal. But obviously it served a purpose for having that sense of control and the one thing that wouldn't abandon me, I guess.
So the words anorexia never floated into...
No.
You weren't following anorexia groups or you never looked it up or no?
I didn't even know what an eating disorder was until I got diagnosed.
Okay. So you have this year of toying, well, you said toying with bulimia, but actually you were being sick every day, so you were bulimic. Then you stopped. What happened next?
Next, I just started to obviously just not eating and things.
Not eating any things?
Not. I was eating some things, but I had a very...
It's the way you said it. I'm so sorry.
I had a very
I had a period where I stopped eating things.
Yeah. Some things, not all
Molecules
things.
that made up food that
Yeah.
were outside of me did not go inside of me anymore.
No. Yeah, I had a very weird, skewed perception back then because I was eating like salad and tuna, but then in the evening I would have like the Fribgy kind of, I don't know what they call it. Is it Frigi milkshake or something like that with Mentos? So I mean, I would eat.
Oh, the thick milkshakes.
Yeah, the thick milkshakes. Yeah.
Yeah, you got Frigi.
I don't know. I've never known. I'm not very
You
good with pronunciation.
just drink them. I'm drinking them. I'm not reading the label here. Yeah. I think they're called Fridge or Frigi or whatever. Yeah. With Mentos.
Yeah.
For tea.
Yeah.
Sound.
But it was just, I mean, I didn't really have a concept of what high calorie was and what low calorie was or anything like that.
You had no idea. You just knew you didn't want to eat solid food.
Yeah.
Did your mum not say to you, eat your tea?
No, not really. No. I mean, I was eating like a salad. So I was eating something. But it was just came a repetitive pattern of either that or sushi and salad or something along those sorts of lines.
And did she see you put your trainers on and go out for a run every day?
Yeah.
Were you trying to, I know that you didn't understand nutrients and calories, but in your mind, were you trying to run as many calories as you'd eaten?
No, I was just trying to escape like the thoughts, I guess. And like running made me feel like I had somewhere to kind of just go and be with my own thoughts. So I'd put I'd put music on and I'd just literally, I didn't have a fitness watch or anything like that. So I had no concept of how far I'd run or anything.
Feels good though.
Yeah. And it was just a release of, okay, we're just going to go and run. And then when we get back, things will be a little bit better.
What music were you listening to back then? If you put your music on to go running, what would you listen to?
Very similar stuff to what I listen to now. So it's kind of like heavy kind of rock type music, indie kind of style. So it's not really changed that much.
Same music. Well, it's not that long ago, is it?
No, it's 10, 15 years, nearly.
Yeah. When you're my age, that's not that long. It's like, that's only 2 divorces ago. Joking. So at that stage, nobody really, your mum and dad didn't really pull you up on it. It sounded like they were being a little bit avoidant.
Yeah.
They just wanted you to not be a burden to them because they didn't seem to be particularly interested in actively parenting you.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that they didn't care. I think it was more, they didn't know what was going on either because obviously back then it wasn't as mainstream or not mainstream, but kind of like people didn't know about it as much as they do now.
In 2005, are we talking about? Yeah.
It was 2010.
2010.
So, I mean, it's not that long ago, but even so, it's sort of like now there's a lot more awareness of it. And
generally, there's more mental health awareness, isn't there?
Yeah. Whereas I think that was the first, I was the first person that they'd known.
I worked in schools from 2004 to 2009, and I was working as an independent like contractor. I didn't have a PTC. I'm not a teacher. And we got training for it, for recognising eating disorders, self-harm, how to report it, all that kind of thing. Yeah, it was good. It was really, really good. You're making a lot of excuses for people, is what I'm saying, which you don't have to do because they fucked up. They really didn't do their jobs. That's on them. That's not on you. They just sucked. Which people do. Sometimes they just fucking suck, man. They just really, really suck. So you weren't really, nobody recognized this and said, okay, let's give this girl support.
No.
And if anybody tried to give you support, you would actively shrug it off.
Yeah.
You naughty person. Why were you doing that?
It sounds really weird, but I didn't like the attention.
Yeah.
Even though that was what I was craving initially, like actually people caring and things like that. But I guess I just feared that if I let people in, then they would hurt me in some way. And I couldn't risk that. So I was just like, well, it's best not to let anyone in the first place. And then you've not got to go through that potential risk of what are people going to do to you.
And the pain and the trauma that comes with that. What happened next?
So eventually I did get picked up by the Eating Disorder Service.
The who service?
Eating Disorder Service.
Okay. At the hospital?
Yes. So I started off in CHEDS, which is the Chester eating disorders service for like children, I guess, for adolescents.
So how old were you, and who picked it up? Who suggested you go?
I think it was the GP. Yeah, I think it was, because they'd started to obviously see me a lot more, and
That
they'd
would have been
started to recognise.
GP in the Wirral, somewhere in Neston.
Yeah. So then they referred me to the CHED service. I had one assessment, and then they took me to the Pine Lodge, it was called. It's now no longer there, thankfully. But yeah, it was
What happens at the Pine Lodge?
It was an inpatient unit for child's mental health. It wasn't specific to eating disorders. So there were some patients with eating disorders, some with self-harm, some with various other mental illnesses. And it was probably one of the most traumatizing experiences I've ever had. I only stayed there for 4 hours.
How old were you when that happened?
I think it was just before my 18th, so I think I was about 17.
What was so traumatic about it?
I think it was more the fact that everything was locked. Like, you went in there, things were put in my room that I wasn't allowed to go up to.
What do you mean? Oh, your things were put in your room?
Yeah, my things were put in a room that I wasn't allowed to go up to. I wasn't allowed to walk up the stairs. Wasn't allowed to go to the toilet by myself.
Why?
Just because this kind of part of the process, they don't sort of like trust you to do things on your own in case you are engaging in.
So at that point, they must have thought that you were very, very sick.
Yeah.
If they wanted that. And you were under 20, they wanted to put you under 24-hour observation.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it was CHEDS that sent you to the Pine Lodge.
Yeah.
So the GP said intelligently, this person might have an eating disorder. CHED said, yeah, she does, and she needs help right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so CHEDS knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
You only lasted 4 hours.
Yes.
Because?
They had a very specific meal plan, if you like, that everyone kind of had. And it was something that I've never liked anyway.
Okay.
But they were trying to force me to eat it, and I was just like, I'm not eating that because I don't like it anyway.
What was it?
It was some kind of red meat thing. I can't remember specifically, but I've never really eaten.
You're not a red meat eater?
No. And it was kind of...
They're like, here's some gammon and chips or something. And you just said no.
God, no. I can't remember. But even like the dessert and things was something that I would have never eaten. I think it was like an apple crumble and custard. And I was just like, that's never been my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So yeah, they sat me alone in front of like a Fortisip drink, which is kind of like a nutrient supplement instead of a meal type thing.
Yeah.
And I was there. I wasn't allowed to leave the room, wasn't allowed to go anywhere. And I was screaming and screaming. And nobody, like the nurses and whatever, just wouldn't engage with me at all.
Were you in a locked room or?
Yeah. I was in a locked room with one nurse.
With a drink?
With a drink.
And told you
can't leave until you've drank this.
A male nurse or a female nurse?
A female nurse.
And what did she say to you while you were screaming?
Nothing. She was just saying, like, nothing at first. And then she was just saying, stop being so silly. Just drink it and you'll be fine. And then we'll just carry on. So I think at that point, my mum and dad came to visit. And my dad just saw how, I guess, like, emotional I was, if you like, and just said, we're taking her out of here. So then, yeah, they took me out.
In fairness to them, it's a difficult situation, isn't it? Like, I don't really know what you can do with somebody who's not eating. They don't want to eat. What should they do?
It's trying to encourage someone to eat, but also encouraging them to actually talk about what's going on at the minute. Like, how are they feeling and things like that? Because it's not, the food is often a coping mechanism for other things that are going on. So until you kind of identify those things, they are going to continue to use their coping mechanism because that works for them.
That sounds like a psychologically literate response. So try to deal with what the causes of the behaviour rather than just attack the behaviour itself.
Yeah.
And nobody was asking you what the cause of your behaviour was at this point?
No.
Okay. They were just saying, put calories in And you were like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I've made that fairly fucking clear.
Yes.
Everything up until this point indicates that. So what happened next?
Next, the professor who ran the unit tried to section me. So
there was a professor running the unit.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, he was a professor of like clinical psychology.
Yeah.
But yeah, he tried to section me. So ironically, I was out with my boyfriend at the time. We went to see the Harry Potter movie, the last Harry Potter movie. And we'd been to like Pizza, because I think that experience kind of started something in me. It was just like, right. So we went to Pizza Hut and then the cinema. And during that whole time, the police had been to my house, the professor had been to my house, and my GP had to sign me off as mentally stable so I wouldn't be sectioned by the police.
Did you eat pizza?
I did eat pizza.
And you felt okay?
Yeah.
You're hanging out with your boyfriend?
Yeah.
And you were actually okay at that point?
Yeah.
And the help had come, but it was too late and too hard.
Yeah.
Too harsh.
Yeah.
So the professor decided you needed, Americans don't know what sectioning is.
So I guess it's kind of being detained under the Mental Health Act. So you can't physically leave the service until they deem that you are capable.
I think you can voluntarily ask to be sectioned as well, can't you?
Yes, I think you can do, yeah.
Yeah, but if you are sectioned, like you sort of lose your essential human rights for a period of time.
Yeah.
So the GP said that you were mentally stable. Did that stop you from being sectioned?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, did you say the police had been to your house?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, because...
So it went from no response, no care, no intervention for years to this girl's at risk of death based on what we can see. Get the police round to the house to save her life kind of a thing.
Yeah, because they wanted me back at that hospital. And that was the last place I was ever going to go.
So... am I right in assuming that they must have thought you were at risk for death though? They must have thought you were near death's door if they, or that professor had decided you were.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't physically at death's door at that point, but I think it was more of a case of how I was presenting, I guess, at the time.
He thought you were very mentally unstable.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, physically wise, at that time, I wasn't. I was underweight, but I wasn't critically unwell, if you like.
Okay. So I'm building a picture of the experience as it sort of unfolds empirically for you. What was it that happens next? So the police have been to your house, but you weren't there. You were watching Harry Potter.
Yes. It's a very good movie.
Was it the last one a good one?
Yeah.
I can't get into those films or those books. Everybody tells me the books are brilliant, the films are brilliant. I just straight over my head. Oh. So then you went home and you found out the police had been there and the professor had been there. What was that like for you?
It was, I guess, very eye-opening in terms of like, oh, like this is quite serious type thing. Mm-hmm. They'd agreed themselves that I could stay out as long as I went to see a private therapy treatment.
With your parents? This is a conversation with your parents, was it? Yeah.
With my parents, GP and the professor. So I started going to the Priory in Altrincham just for like once a week, kind of a therapy session. And
how was that?
It was okay. I mean, I think they were very much driven by weight-orientated things and food-related aspects rather than the therapy side of things. So I think it did start to make me a little bit worse.
Really? Why?
I think just because there was this hyper-focus on food.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like, I need to eat, but at the same time, I don't want to eat. So that's when I started to go back into the more bulimic tendencies.
This isn't my speciality, and I have enough in my brain to take on this as well. But as I'm sat outside of this, looking at it, I'm like, okay, why are we consistently focusing past the client? Like, I want you to eat food and be at a healthy weight so that, like if I'm a clinician, so that you don't die, so that I don't have to fill in forms. Like it's a hassle for me. It's kind of like that almost. It's like just fucking eat and stop being a nuisance.
Yeah.
And not what you actually need is, well, what's going on for you? Like the focus should be on you. So even at Altrincham, it wasn't on you. It was, what were they doing? Were they saying these are the foods you should eat? This is the weight we need to get you to, kind of a thing?
Pretty much, yeah. Because it's still very much a medical model in the UK in terms of like the eating disorder service.
Okay.
So it's kind of
I know nothing.
based
on I really know nothing.
Yeah, it's based on kind of weight, BMI, et cetera, rather than sort of, I guess, more the therapeutic side and more sort of like, okay, what's actually going on? How can we rebuild your identity outside of this eating disorder?
Right.
For a lot of places, unless you go privately.
So I don't know if your specific case, I don't know if there's difference, because there could be, like with depression, there's multiple depressions, I think, and multiple things that leads to depression. So let's just take bulimia off the table and just focus on anorexia, just restricted eating. There might be multiple roads that lead to that. There won't be an infinite number. There might be like 3 or 4. I really don't know. This is how I would try and model it. But your one probably is the most consistent one, which is like, I don't want to be. Me being is painful and a hassle for other people, and I feel like I'm a burden and I feel guilty for being alive. So I want there to be less of me because there's a less of a problem. Was it something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose, like you said, you're trying to make yourself as small and insignificant so people don't give you any attention.
Ah, okay. Well, then I do understand that. That's a lot like when I talk about codependency, like the specific type of codependency I talk about is echo codependency, which is the same. It's a very similar thing. You're really trying to make yourself as small and as insignificant as possible so that you're not under threat from predators in the environment. You said make yourself as small as possible to not be a burden. Was that what you said?
Yeah, so you don't attract any attention.
Attention, yeah. Because attention is potential pain.
Yeah, it's the potential of being vulnerable and being open to being, I guess, either abandoned, hurt, rejected. And those are all things that we want to avoid.
Okay. That's interesting. There probably is a link somewhere here between codependency and eating disorders. It's a response to stress, like it's a trauma response, right? You know, you're in pain and you're trying to resolve the pain, and this is one way of doing it. So, sorry, I started working there in my head. Like, okay, what would you do for a client? No. So, out of coaching mode, back into interview mode, you had this experience at Altrincham, and you said that it started to make you feel worse because. Tell me why you think that was. I know you sort of said there's the focus on the weight and the food. Why was that such an injury to you?
I think it just made me focus on the food a lot more. And I think it made me sort of like focus on my decisions a lot more. And I guess that they were trying to take control off me by sort of like influencing what I was supposed to be eating and things like that.
Yep.
And I didn't like that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess that's when I started to go back into the bulimic kind of tendencies. I would eat, even like with my boyfriend, and bless him, we'd eat lunch. I would disappear to like the bathroom for however long I was there, and he'd just sit there and just wait until I got back.
And did he know?
He knew.
Excuse me.
And
I had a bulimic phase when I was 18. It only lasted 3 months, but sometimes when I hear stories about other people doing it, I get like a weird flashback. So, what was the next thing that happened as a result of that?
I think I'd started to lose the weight again, but then it wasn't. can't really say this, but it wasn't going down fast enough. So
you can say it on my podcast.
yeah, it wasn't going down fast enough. So I was just
You were
like,
disappointed with how far south you were going.
yeah. So I was just like, right, okay, we need to change something up. So
Come
that's
on,
when
guys.
I was just like,
let's
okay,
focus.
let's stop and reduce things.
Do you know what weight you were when you began to bring it back down again?
Well, I'd got up to around about 8 stone whilst I was in the Priory.
Do you know what that is in kilos?
In kilo, I have no idea.
8 stone in the Priory. Go on,
I don't
sorry.
know what that is now.
I'll try. Thank you, dear. And then?
And then I was playing Wii Fit with my friends that had hurt me previously. And like everyone sort of pointed out that I was the heaviest on this Wii Fit kind of scale. And then I was just like, right, okay, this isn't a good thing. So then I sort of like slowly stopped like eating again. So I just slowly, gradually reduced different things. But this time it was kind of like, it was more calculated, if you like, in terms of not numbers wise, but kind of like, okay, we're going to take these things out from this particular points of the day. And then I kind of got to a point where I was quite underweight.
What age were you when this happened?
This was 18.
You got quite underweight. What weight did you get down to?
When I first entered adult services, I was...
What's adult services?
So adult eating disorder services.
Okay.
I was probably 44 kilos.
Okay.
And I went down to about 39 kilos.
Wow.
And then I went into Oak Trees, which is in Clatterbridge. So it's the mental health unit in Clatterbridge.
So you were down at 39 kilos, which, so my God. So you're, at that point, you're like 11, because you should be around 52 kilos, I would have thought, right?
Yeah, probably, I don't know.
Comfortably?
Yeah.
Whatever your comfortable weight is, because the only reason I know is, oddly enough, I had 2 ex-girlfriends who had eating disorders. And so this issue would come up. They had it before they were with me. And I know they're the same height as you. I actually brought one of the girls to the gym as an ex-girlfriend. Very strange. We're still friends. We still train together. It's really weird. But I know roughly what their healthy weight range is. And I can see on them, like say if we Skype or something, like on their face, I'm like, what's
going on?
what are we tickling on the old weight there? Are you still squatting, or are you just there? Because they both will do a thing of like, if they're in a cycle, they'll never tell me that they're depressed, but they'll say that they've stopped lifting weights because they just can't tolerate lifting weights. They both go into like they're both runners, so they'll go into a heavy running cycle. So 39. You were very sick. Yeah. And you went into which unit?
It's called Oak Trees in Clatterbridge.
What happened there?
The first experience, I stayed there for, I didn't leave the building for at least 3 months.
Okay.
Because they wouldn't even let me out for a walk.
Okay. 3 months you were in there.
Yeah, I mean, I was there for a lot longer, but I didn't leave. I didn't see outside for 3 months. You were
that sick that they said you're staying in this room?
Yeah.
Did you have the strength to move anyway, or?
Yeah, I had the strength to move. I could still squat. Like they normally do like a squat test to see how able you are to kind of function.
Oh, do they do that? They have you squat? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And he was impressed that I could do that. Like, so it was quite good. But yeah, I didn't leave and I think...
Was that your volition, or was that what they wanted?
What they wanted.
Okay.
And one of the nurses had to kind of fight to kind of even allow me, like, to get me to go out in a wheelchair to kind of go and see the grounds and things like that. So I was becoming very depressed naturally, being stuck inside, and very institutionalized by the whole process, I guess.
Did they offer you therapy as well, or did they just, what were they offering you?
There was a therapist, yes. We had like a weekly kind of therapy session. But I didn't really trust her, so I didn't really tell her things.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then apart from that, it was kind of more like a kind of a structured eating plan, and then just observations by like the nurses and things.
And were you eating the food that they gave you, or did you refuse it? Or
Not initially. I started eating it once I realized that that was the only way out.
okay, so you were sectioned at this point.
No, I was voluntary.
You were voluntary.
Yeah.
Okay, but the only way that you could get out of this type of care was to eat your way back.
Yeah.
Did they have a weight that they wanted you to get to?
Initially, yeah, they wanted me to get to I think it was 7 stone. I don't know what that is, but yeah, they wanted me to get to a specific target for me to get out, I guess.
For the case of one of my exes, it was that specific target was 45 kilos. What's 45 kilos in stone, Jacob? Sorry.
7.1.
So it's about the same.
Yeah. I mean, they wanted a heavier than that. They wanted another 5 kilo, but like walking around, living your life sort of a weight, because 39 is like you can collapse. Did you ever faint or?
I did, yes.
When you were out and about, or?
No, when I was back in there.
Back in there, you've fainted a few times. And so what happened next in that recovery process?
So I left, and then I just went back straight to old habits.
Oh, as soon as you left? How long did you do with them, did you say? 3 months inside, literally inside?
Yeah, literally inside. I spent my 18th birthday and Christmas inside. But I think I was there that time for about 5 months. And then I left for maybe 2 or 3 months, and then I was back. And then I stayed for a little bit.
Because in the 2 or 3 months that you left, you went back to restricted eating?
Yeah. And then I'd pretty much lost all of the weight that I put on.
Okay.
So then I went back.
Okay.
And then did the same again, got to a certain point, and then went back. But this time it was probably the worst time. I'd completely given up by that point, because I didn't see a way out.
So when you say you've given up, this passive suicidal ideation was a little more active than passive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there were definitely times where I just said, like, it took me ages to get ready in the morning and everything like that, because I just didn't physically have the energy. I could see what I was doing to myself, but I was just completely powerless to stop it. And I just sometimes said, I just want this to end. I just don't want to be like this anymore. So I pleaded sometimes, just with God or whatever, to just take me. I don't want to do this anymore.
Because it would end the problem completely. Yeah. And you were trapped in this cycle where you were in an institution, you'd get some progress, then you'd leave, and then you'd go back, and then you're back in the institution. So it was a hellish experience.
Yeah.
How long did this go on for?
A good while. I started going in there 2010, and then the worst time was 2012. So I kind of, I went on holiday to Fuerteventura with mum and dad, and I was in the depths of it then, and I wouldn't allow them to eat with me or anything like that. So I would go to the restaurant, they would go to the restaurant, but we'd eat on separate tables, because I'd sort of convinced them that I would only eat if I was eating by myself rather than with them. And
Quite
then
the trickster, aren't you?
Yes.
Were you eating by yourself?
I was eating, but then I was also purging at the same time.
Oh, and so you would eat food, but then you purge in the restaurant.
Yeah. But it was it wasn't even a large amount. It was kind of what you'd call more subjective kind of eating, if you like.
Yes.
So yeah, by that point.
Subjective eating and subjective purging. So you weren't really bringing anything up because you didn't really have anything in you.
I was bringing up what I had in me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, and on the last day in the airport, I just refused to eat or drink anything, because I didn't want to. I was seeing the psychiatrist the day I got back, and I didn't want to go there. So I think I just thought, well, if I just stop, that was my kind of like refusal of, no, I'm not going there.
When I asked you when you were 10, if there was a protest or a rebellion, you said no. Do you see any elements of protest in this? Do you see like the rebellion of just like, no, I'm not eating?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
Everyone wants you to.
Yeah, everyone wants me to.
And fuck everyone.
Yeah, pretty much. Because that's it. You know, mum and dad were pleading with me to eat something at the airport. I was just like, no. On the plane, no.
Yeah.
And it was, I guess, because you are on a plane and there is that, I don't know, I guess sort of like dryness out of the skin or whatever.
Yes. Did you want the benefits of that? You're like, I hope I get really dry and light.
It wasn't even that. It was just a case of like just completely giving up. And I was just like, I don't want to go to there tomorrow because I know he's going to take one look at me and just do something that I don't want him to do.
Were you depressed?
Yeah.
Anxious as well?
Yeah, I was anxious of the consequences of what was going to happen the next day, even though I knew what was going to happen.
Did you ever see that Michael Fassbender movie where he starves himself? It's based on a true story of an IRA guy who starves himself to death. You shouldn't watch it because it would be a terrible trigger for you.
Yeah,
Could you look it up? Michael Fassbender. I think it's just called Hunger. It's an excellent film, but not good for people with a history of eating disorders. I mention it because of the rebellion. He did that. He was on a hunger strike because he was a political prisoner and so on and so forth. So you went back and you saw the psychiatrist?
Yes.
What happened?
He said I could either go voluntarily or I would be sectioned. So I picked the lesser of two evils.
It could be your choice or it could be my choice, but it is happening.
Yeah.
That's very decent of him.
Yeah.
To pretend that you have a choice.
Yeah. To be fair, like if you go voluntarily, then you have control over what they can and can't do to you.
Yes.
Whereas if
it's a better option.
It's a better option, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was there. And by that point, I was so weak that I couldn't physically swallow very well.
Okay.
Because my organs just weren't functioning properly.
Yeah.
But they saw that as you're refusing to kind of eat type of thing. So I literally managed like 2 spoonfuls in a 30-minute window.
Of solid food?
Of solid food, because I just couldn't swallow it, whether that was kind of, some of it was muscularity-wise, there wasn't any strength in me. But then probably as well, it was kind of that rebellious aspect of, what is this going to do to me if I kind of...
And do you think your body started to rebel?
Yeah.
Like even if your mind was saying, okay, let's eat, your body was like still stuck on the program of, no, we're not eating.
Yeah. Yeah. And the body was just so weak at that point as well. I didn't have the strength to lift my head off the pillow.
Do you know what weight you got down to? Were you at a similar weight, the 39 kilo thing?
No, I was a lot lower.
What did you go down to?
When I went into the unit, I was 25 kilos.
Sorry, 25?
Yeah.
And they were giving you solid food to eat?
Yeah.
Did you ever take they didn't intravenously give you nutrients as well, or?
Not there, no, because they don't do that there.
Oh, okay. You were at 25 kilos?
Yes, yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Please don't cry.
Fucking hell. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Have we got tissue?
I'm going to need therapy after this. Fucking hell. Oh, fuck. Could you get my nose spray as well, please, mate? Because now I'm going to be blocked up.
Yeah, it was interesting times.
Worked with Richard for 2 years and I've got the same.
Jesus.
I won't tell you what happens next.
I just before we do, just let me gather my thoughts and gird up my loins, as they say. Right. So, Let me just strap myself in. So, what happened next?
So my mum and dad were visiting me and I didn't feel well. And I went to the bathroom. Obviously, yes. I didn't feel well. Ironically,
Didn't you?
So yeah.
This is the most British podcast ever. I wasn't at my best on that day. I wasn't tickety-boo.
No.
Fucking hell. Okay.
So yeah.
Give me a second here. So your mum and dad came to visit you, and you weren't feeling well.
No.
And then what happened?
I went to the bathroom and I was getting back into the wheelchair to go to see my mum and dad, and I collapsed.
Okay. What did they do?
I was rushed to Arrow Park.
Yeah.
Because everything on my whole of my left side had just gone. Like there was no movement, if you like, I guess. And
I've not heard of that before. So the entire functionality of the left side of your body packed in.
Yeah. And then I didn't know this at the time, but I went when I was in the hospital. I did stop working completely for a little bit, and they had to bring me back around.
Uh-huh.
And then, I was in the HDU unit, so the high dependency unit. And mum and dad got told, it could go either way. Sorry, this is probably one of your most emotional podcasts ever.
I'm fucking swallowing tissue now. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I'm with a client and they're struggling emotionally, we do things called pattern interrupts. Now you're going to pattern interrupt me, so
Yes.
you'll be the coach and I'll be the client. What was, when you would run, name one of the tracks. You said you liked hard rock music. What was your favourite hard rock track?
See, I liked a bit of AC/DC.
Oh, lovely. What's your favourite AC/DC track?
Highway to Hell.
Oh my God, I just blasted Triceps the other day to Highway to
Yeah,
Hell.
Highway to Hell. And then I used to listen to a lot of Linkin Park and Paramore.
Oh, really? That's like my favourite running album from like 2009, I think was, what's the one with Crawling in My Skin? What album is that? Jacob's there.
He's on it.
He's the Jamie of this show. Knows everything.
Theory.
Sorry?
Hybrid.
Hybrid Theory. Fucking great album. There is not a bad track on that album. So hard rock, AC/DC. Good Lord.
It's a great tangent.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I get you anything? Are you okay?
I don't know, like emotional resilience or something.
A bagel?
Would you like a bagel? Will it help me wipe my eyes? What was that Michael Fassbender film? Is it called Hunger?
Yeah.
Could you just tell me the director's name?
I was about to pull it up on the screen, but it was very graphic, so I pulled it down.
Yeah. It's
Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen. It's a brilliant film. There are scenes in it where they talk. There's one scene where he talks to a priest, and they talk uncut in one shot for something like 12 or 14 minutes. It's fucking brilliant. It's such a good film. Okay. Whew. Wait a second now.
Yes.
You're used
Gather
to
my thoughts.
You're used to this story, you see, because it happened to you. You were there.
I've only ever sold the story once or twice, though.
You've only ever told it once or twice.
Yeah.
Please never tell it again.
No.
Oh, you have to. You must. I don't know why I'm so sensitive to it. Give us a moment. Welcome to the Richard Grannon and Friends podcast. I will do my level best. So, yes, you collapsed. You said you lost functionality on one side of your body, and what happened then? You died. You said.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then over the next 24 hours, mum and dad got told it could go either way. But me being stubborn, decided that we're going to stay.
Okay.
Obviously, because otherwise we wouldn't be here today.
Why
so-
let this torture end? Let's
Well,
keep
exactly.
going.
Yeah, that's it. So then I was in the HDU for 5 days. Slowly started to get a bit more. I was obviously being tube fed by this point.
When you're tube fed, is it through the...
Yeah, through the nose into the stomach.
you weren't conscious, though?
Yeah.
Oh, you were
Yeah.
conscious?
I was
Okay.
conscious. I could lift my head, but I couldn't lift anything or couldn't feel anything from neck downwards.
When I asked you about this and you said, you have pictures, don't you, of you underweight?
Yes.
And is that from this time?
Yeah.
Of you at 25 kilos? Or
Yeah, I was 23 in that photo.
You were at 23 in that photo.
Yeah.
Could you go to my Instagram and look up Jenn Nesbit?
I mean, obviously, I've been very selective with the photo because
Yeah.
I don't want
If you're
it to
going to
be...
put it on screen, tell me. I'll look away.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'll never get through this interview.
Yeah.
I just spelled your Instagram, sorry, Jen. Jen.
2 ends, or 3 ends in total. Yeah, because I didn't want it to... I wanted it to raise awareness, this photo, but I didn't want it to be too graphic in nature. Because
you don't want to be
obviously,
gratuitous.
Recent.
yeah, and it's June last year, so it's a little bit further down.
Was it like a before and after sort of thing?
Yeah.
You climb as well.
Oh, you're a climber? Oh, wow.
Just saw the climbing hanger on there.
Oh, cool.
I got it.
Where's that?
Sandals.
Cool.
What was it? Is it this one with you with the tube in your nose?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Kind of gives it away, doesn't it, a little bit?
Fucking hell,
Yeah, so I've kind of been very careful, I guess, with the photo that I use. Well, try to cover as much as
I
possible.
see. So you just show your face.
Yeah.
You don't show...
No.
Okay. If I'd gone and looked first, then I would have been able to figure this out. But I didn't look. So, okay. 23 kilos.
Yes.
What happened next?
Well, from there, things started to get a little bit better.
That's good. I'm very fucking glad to hear that.
Yeah. So obviously, whilst I was in the HDU, I started to build up a little bit of strength. Started to get feeling back in limbs, which was good.
I'm not a doctor, but I reckon that's
Yes, it's always a good sign. And then, I took, the physios came to see me. I took my first step, which felt like I'd literally stood on a mountain.
Really?
So that was probably one of the most amazing accomplishments that I've ever made.
How long from being in the high dependency unit to taking a step?
5 days.
5 days.
Yeah. And then, I went up to a normal ward in the hospital for a little bit. I did collapse again, and I had to have a blood transfusion because
Oh, wow.
there was something that was, I don't really know, but I remember this blood transfusion. I can't remember specifically why, but there was something wrong with, no doubtedly there was something wrong at that low weight.
Your organs just weren't doing what they should have been
basically.
doing. Yeah.
But after that sort of turn, I then started to puck up again, which is good. And then I went on to a gastric ward, and I had a very narrow-minded, I'm going to call him, junior doctor, who was very much observing me all the time and kind of making sure I didn't move, and that kind of, I got my rebellious streak. So I pulled out my tube, and I wouldn't have the tube fed. I was going to eat my food.
Okay.
And he didn't like that. So he tried to get one of the doctors from the eating disorder unit to section me.
Yeah.
But even at that low weight, I was still very much mentally there. And she
Right.
said that there's no reason why I can section you because you're mentally stable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So managed to escape that and again, which is quite nice.
Good. And you were then eating solid food.
Yeah. I mean, I was only eating certain things, and I was very particular about what mum and dad could bring in and things like that. But yeah, I was eating to a degree. And from that point, I wanted to go home. I didn't want to go back to the eating disorder unit.
Okay.
But yeah, the doctor wasn't having that. So I went back to the eating disorder unit for a while. So.
How long, when you say a while, how long were you in there for?
8 months.
Fucking hell.
And I've been in our apart for 2 months.
So there's
before that.
Quite a long period of your life where you were institutionalized with this.
Yeah. From like 2010. The last time I was in there was tail end of 2014.
Okay. And they managed to bring your weight up slowly over the 8-month period and get you back to healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy-ish.
Healthy-ish, yeah.
2014 was the last time you were in, you said?
Yeah.
And then you didn't go back in?
No.
But you did relapse a little bit?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, after that near-death experience one, I did relapse again and went back in to the service after that.
Okay.
And then relapsed again. I got down to a point and then I was just like, well, I'm not as bad as I was then. So I can continue to keep going, which is...
So you did 2 more cycles of dropping back down and then ending up back in hospital again into 2015, 2016?
Just into end of 2014.
Okay. So
I'd started to drop a little bit and then my granddad died of he had cancer, and that was the time where I went in last.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just being in there, well, I'd lost like 4 years with my granddad because he couldn't come to see me, he couldn't see me like that. And I think losing him and not being able to say goodbye really either, because I wasn't mentally there, but also I was there for the funeral for like 2 hours because that was all I was allowed.
Oh, you're only allowed to be, because
I was on hospital leave, if you like.
Okay.
And I think just not being able to process that as well was quite hard. But yeah, I was only in that time for about 3 months, just because they told me I was a revolving door case, so I didn't need to be in the bed for that long.
Yeah.
Because they said as long as you get to a BMI of around 14, you can sustain that and you'll be fine. Because they'd identified that this is a pattern. I think I'd been in and out maybe 5-6 times by that point.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a pattern, and some of the nurses in there said, you're going to be one of those cases that you are of a revolving door case. So I think that it imprinted in my mind that...
It's good hypnosis, that. I've watched the psychiatrist do that in real time to somebody. I nearly killed the psychiatrist on the spot. So they said to you, you'll always have this, you'll always be in and out.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the right thing to say to you because you were rebellious. And you'd be like, fuck you, I'm not going to be.
Eventually it did work that way.
It's kind of like a reverse.
Yeah. reverse psychology. Yeah. Eventually it did work that way. It didn't at the time though.
Yeah. At the time, how did it make you feel?
I guess that this was the only thing that I was good at. Because this was my whole life. I didn't have anything else outside of it.
And did you feel like you'd mastered a skill in some sense?
Yeah. I felt like I was at home with it, even though I didn't want it.
Yeah.
And I knew that it was killing me.
But it must have felt good, right? In some way, at some level.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like I was safe.
Okay.
And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process of having the control over things. And I guess just sort of having my routine, because I was very structured in a routine of like, okay, well, we'll go and we'll walk this amount of time and then we'll sit down, we'll have a bit of a coffee, we'll do X, Y, and Z. It was very kind of like regimented. And then it was sort of like, okay, well, we didn't do that yesterday. We didn't eat that yesterday. So we can do without that today. And it just kind of became a very much a game of me versus anorexia, I guess. And by that point, because I'd been in the unit a lot, I had picked up on other people's habits and other people's awareness of things.
Habits, like you learn from them, or?
Yeah. It's a very competitive environment.
Anorexia?
Yeah, and being in an eating disorder unit.
You're all trying to go south?
Yeah, I guess there is that element of you're trying to compete to who's the worst, who's the best anorexic, or who's the best at being the eating disorder person or whatever. And I suppose I learned a lot about calories, which before then I didn't know what a calorie was.
You're like one of those prisoners who goes inside and then learns how to be a better thief.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So I just learned so many new skills. It's amazing.
Thanks, guys. Now more skillful.
Yeah.
Skillful anorexic at the end of it.
And I learned how to hide things and how to manipulate weight and all of these things that I didn't know. I didn't even realize were things until I went into units.
I nearly ate tissue paper before when I was trying to blow my nose, and then I gasped. A friend of mine, she wasn't a girlfriend, but a friend of mine, she was a ballet dancer when she was 9, and they'd weigh her every week. And one of her tricks was eating tissue paper. So she'd have something in her stomach to abate the hunger. I don't know why I'm telling you these sordid tricks. Like, it's not like you've probably heard that. You probably know all this type of stuff. Like, there's stuff you can put in your stomach that has no calorie effect, but makes your stomach feel like there's something.
Yeah, well, that's it. Because I used to hide cups behind my curtains because they used to have a curfew of when you could drink before the weigh day. And I used to have like cups of water and things hidden behind curtains.
Because they thought you'd put the water in you, and you're like, no, it's just over there behind the curtain.
No, I would manipulate the weight. I would drink the water so I was heavier.
Oh,
because then that meant you were closer to getting out, but you actually didn't weigh that much.
You know, boxers and MMA fighters do that.
Yeah.
To get they go underweight and then to get the weight back.
Yeah.
So they get their fighting weight. They just chug loads of water. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Heavy
stuff. Heavy stuff.
How did you get better? Are you better?
Yes, more or less. Everyone was telling me when I was in the unit that I should become a nurse because of how caring I was. So I'd set myself that goal of, right, okay, I'm going to go to uni and start nursing. So I think that was kind of like the driving force, because I'd sort of said no to going back in the unit in January. I had till September to put on weight to kind of hit a 15 BMI sort of scale to be accepted onto the nursing course.
Right.
And I started to open up a lot to my dad then. We'd have like weekly meetings where we'd go to a Costa in the Chester Retail Park.
You weren't living with your dad at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
But because of the way Mum was, I didn't talk about things at home.
Okay.
Because she'd kind of like not know how to talk about things, and her way of dealing with things was to just be silent.
Okay, so you'd tell her stuff and she would just be silent?
Yeah. I mean, I understand now because of her childhood and what she's been through. That's the reason why she is the way she is. But at the time, the only thing I've ever wanted from her is for her to say that she's proud of me and that she loves me. I mean, she says that she loves me, but she's not affectionate. She's not an affectionate person. Like, her hugs are not hugs, if you like. It's kind of like...
Yeah.
And it's sort of... But I understand now, with being in therapy and things, why she is the way she is, and doing my psychology, I understand why she is the way she is.
Do you think she could be on the spectrum, maybe, for autism?
I don't think she's on the spectrum. I think she's just had a lot of inconsistency in her own life and not really had parents there. So that's affected her emotional regulation, if you like.
Just as an opinion, as an aside, do you think it's possible that some women, even though they have the physical capacity to be mothers, maybe they just don't really have like a mothering instinct.
Yeah. Because I think it varies really depending on what you've been through, doesn't it really? And if you've not had that, like we were saying before, if you've not had that blueprint or that role model to kind of say, like, show you what nurturing is and things like that, then it must be very difficult to know, what do I do with this child?
Yeah. So she can hug you, but it feels not huggy.
Yeah.
She's a human putting her arms around another human.
Yeah.
I am familiar with this experience, to the point where occasionally I get headbutted when my mother tries to show me affection. She doesn't mean it. She just, it's just not in her, it's really not in her nature. Like, she does her best, but she's like, I believe humans do this now. And you're like, ow, for fuck's sake. She's a powerful woman. So now you don't cycle into the desire to restrict your calories at this point in your life?
Not now, no.
Do you ever dream about it?
I sometimes dream that I'm back in that place.
Which place? The psychological place?
The psychological place and the physical place. I sometimes have nightmares that I'm back in the psychiatric units and things.
Oh, different psychiatric units.
Yeah.
The reason I brought up before about what felt good about it is because if like I'm the bog standard mental health advocate, there's always an agenda and a spin that you're supposed to put on like people's stories and what this means. But the truth of it is, like, I can say this as a recovering fucking lunatic cokehead. The reason why people engage in destructive patterns of behavior that can kill you, like my lifestyle in my 20s could have killed me, was because it felt good. You don't do it. You're not there going, oh, this is shit the whole time. You'd stop.
Yeah.
Like if cocaine stopped working and fighting with people didn't make me feel good and excited, I wouldn't have done it. So telling the truth always seems to be important to me. Have they asked you in therapy if you enjoyed it, if it felt good to you?
No one's ever asked me that.
Right.
Whether it felt good. And it did feel good.
Yeah.
It felt sort of like I had a release, and I guess sort of like there was a sense of achievement in it because, you've, I guess in anorexia's eyes, you've achieved something by not eating.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like that positive aspect of, we've done this. We've been able to sustain not eating for this amount of time, or, we've been able to restrict this or limit this.
Well, we've had powerlifters in here who, we watched a video of Matty hitting like 175 or something on a bench press, and he jumps off the bench and he's clearly fucking euphoric.
Yeah.
So as a human being, we hit goals, and how do we know whether we hit the goal? By the numbers. So I can easily, I never was anorexic, but I could easily be like, oh, day 6. I've never done 6 days without food before. Day 7, holy shit. Wow, how far can I take this? That's why the idea of being skilled at anorexia or skilled at an eating disorder, of course, it becomes a strength and a skill over time.
Yeah.
Right now, you don't have, you sometimes have dreams about it, but you don't feel tempted. You don't feel tempted to restrict calories and to get whatever the dopamine release is from watching the scale go south. No,
I mean, like when I have episodes of depression, I do struggle with eating, and I can go for very long times without eating.
Your body just doesn't want to eat.
Yeah. And I just don't have any physiological hunger. And that kind of happened a little bit July last year. And I think that's kind of what's triggered my stomach issues now.
Do you remember what it was? Was it an external thing, July last year? Was it an external stress or?
It was a combination of things. So a boyfriend that I wouldn't even call him a boyfriend because we weren't that official, but it was kind of like there was this guy that I was seeing before the pandemic who started to pop up again. And that sort of like triggered that sense that I was too well. Because like at the start of last year, I started to go see therapy after kind of encouragement from fear and everyone like that, because I was doing too much and trying to do too much.
Work-wise, you were doing too much?
Yeah. And I got to a point where I just completely broke down in the gym. So I'd started to do a lot of work, and
But this was because of exhaustion and just stress?
Yeah, because my new coping mechanism after I left anorexia behind was kind of be busy all the time, achieve things.
Workaholism.
Yeah. And I got to the point where I was just like, and obviously I wasn't saying no to anything either. So it was just like, I was completely just fizzled out, I guess.
There's that codependency issue. Not saying no to anything. And so this triggered a depression, which leads you to think about restricting calories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I guess I didn't like the fact that I was attracting too much attention because I was looking healthy and well, and I'd started to put myself out there into different places and was, I guess, more my true self. And that sort of like, it was attracting too much positive attention that I wasn't used to.
Yeah. So you said you were doing too well. What does that mean to you? I was doing too well.
I think I was afraid of losing the identity of anorexia because it's always been there. I mean, you can't really just, in my eyes, because I've had it for so long, you can't really just say, I'm not anorexic anymore, because the thoughts are always there, I guess. But it's kind of like you kind of have the ability to navigate them and navigate it down the positivity route that you're trying to take your life down rather than going down the eating disorder path.
Yeah.
And I think I'd got too far away from like the crossroads type thing. And I was wearing things that I'd never worn before. I was doing things that I'd never done before.
Like you were more confident in your clothing choice and stuff? Okay.
Yeah, just more confident in who I was and sort of like being more charismatic and everything like that. And we'd been on holiday, and it was the best holiday that I'd ever had. I didn't think about food, had exactly what I wanted.
When you say we, you mean you and the guy you were seeing? Or?
Me and mum and dad.
Oh, okay. And you felt good while you were away?
Yeah. And then I got back, and I think it was just too good to be true type thing. And I think because of that, I was just like, this is bad.
I always felt in my own recovery process, like when things were going well, I was shaky. I was like, I can fall from here.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm a scumbag and I'm like sleeping in my car and my girlfriend hates me and she's throwing my clothes on the floor, I'm like, what are you going to do? Like, I'm fine here. I am a scumbag. So like, this is where I belong. But if things, I had my own periods where I'd cycle through and I'd be like, this feels shaky. Like I don't feel secure in success. I feel secure at the bottom of the barrel because you can't fall. Do you feel like this is something maybe you're slowly learning to do, to normalize to get to the place where this isn't some special state, but this is just normal now?
Yeah.
You sort of getting there, do you think? What's the biggest lesson you've taken from all of this experience that you had?
I guess that you have to learn to let people in.
Okay. God, do you? Jesus, I should learn that.
Well, to a certain degree, let people in, but also
just a bit,
just a little bit. But then I guess like if you don't talk about things and you don't sort of like allow yourself to feel what's actually happening, then you implode it on yourself, and actually that doesn't really solve the issue in the first place. It's just kind of, it's masking it with maladaptive coping mechanisms.
That kind of feeds into my next question, which was going to be, what would you advise people who are going through who are going through what you did go through in the past? What would you recommend they do?
Try and find someone that you can talk to honestly about it. Whether that is a friend or someone externally to you that has no input in your personal life. And just start to let them know how you're feeling and why you're using these coping mechanisms in the first place. Because like we've said, they always have a reason and a purpose. And once you actually start to find that, that's when you can see, are there other ways that I can meet that need without going down this path?
You found other ways to meet the need, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do this instead of doing cocaine. Because there's like public speaking is risky. There's parts of your brain that light up with cocaine that are related to risk, gambling, and God, there's something else I can't remember. But there are other things you can do. What are the things that you're doing that you think feed the same need that used to be what anorexia would do for you?
I guess now it's more like the gym, and as well, I guess, starting to do public speaking and things. So putting myself out there, doing like workshops and things, trying to get over the thought process that everyone is against you and starting to make friendships, and learn to trust, I guess.
Letting people show you who they are rather than deciding that they're bad beforehand. If people want to talk to you or just get support from you, or maybe just have a conversation about what they're experiencing, is that something you do? Like they can do that. Where are they best reaching out to you? Where can they find you?
Probably on Instagram is probably the best one.
What's your Instagram handle? We'll put it on the screen as well.
Jenn with 2 N's and then Nesbit, Nesbit with an underscore.
If you go through who I'm following on Instagram and you put Jenn in, you'll find Jenn there. What's the plans? What's the next sort of year look like for you? What are you going to do next? Apart from make me cry.
Try not to make you cry again. The next year, it's continuing to grow like the coaching business, really. So I help a lot of people now with mindset related coaching and their thought processes around food. So continue to support more people and getting more into public speaking as well.
Okay, that's really cool. Your coaching when it relates to food, I remember speaking to you in the gym a few times about this. You help people explore their emotional relationship with food as well, right?
Yes.
You don't do that specifically to avoid eating disorders. This is just part of your nutrition training as well, isn't it?
It's more to, I guess, prevent eating disorders.
Okay.
And
is that more your niche? Would you say you're more interested in helping people with eating disorders?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think as well, now I've done the masters in psychology, I kind of have that lens that I can understand where people are coming from on different areas. So I can support them a lot better with struggles around food.
Have you ever taken male clients for overcoming issues around eating disorders?
Yes, yeah.
That's good. So there are guys coming forward and acknowledging that they have the issue as well.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Well, we're going to need a little rest after this. Jenn, thank you very much for coming on.
It's okay. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And I'd like to have you on again if you're up for it in the future. And so you can find Jenn on Instagram. As she said, she can help you. Specifically, your favorite client working with is around eating disorders. You would say that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and sort of like mindset wise. So I help people with self-limiting beliefs that prevent them doing lots of different things, whether that's applying for a different job or overcoming certain things, putting themselves out there in relationships as well.
That's great. That's really cool. Much needed as well. So thank you. Ladies and gents, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.